Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. Your host today is Colin Watt, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a former Celt, no less. He is the current manager of Formartine United. Welcome to the podcast, Paul Lawson. Paul, how are you doing?
Not too bad yourself.
As good as we can be doing, I think, at this time. Certainly we're talking about easing the lockdown restrictions and starting to get back to some sort of normality soon. So hopefully that means the pubs will be open, we'll get a couple of pints, and Scottish football won't be long till it's back.
I think that's every football fan sort of waiting on. Get your coupon on and watch the score sort of thing, is it? But no, I think we're all, despite everything that's going on, I think the biggest thing for all us football people is you just miss the game and want to get back to it.
Yeah, and I seen obviously last night they've extended the lockdown in Leicester. Do you think that can be attributed to the Brendan Rodgers effect there?
Well, no, I won't say a word.
But certainly, as you're saying, it's an interesting time in Scottish football. You're currently the manager of Formartine United, and Russell Anderson is your brother-in-law, is that correct?
Yeah.
And he's your number two? So It must be good to boss your brother-in-law about a bit.
Water boy, as he calls himself.
But you certainly had a good season before the league was called. You made the third round of the Scottish Cup, the Challenge Cup, sitting sixth on the table. What was the feeling around the club when eventually the season was called?
I think in terms of league position, we're obviously disappointed. We like to see ourselves, and we've certainly got a squad capable of challenging at the top end of the league. So that was disappointing. So ultimately for the league to be called early, it probably didn't affect us as much as it maybe the other clubs sort of higher up the table. Yeah, with good cup run, and we've managed to do that the last couple of seasons. Scottish Cup's been, for clubs at our level, it's a huge source of income. So it's important that we can try and put a run together. And I think, well, certainly I would like to. The sort of dream would be to get a big club to North Lodge. We've had an away tie at Partick Thistle a couple of years ago and done well against sort of League 1, League 2 teams. But to get a big tie at home would be the aim, and certainly, like I say, it's a financial impact. It can certainly help the club. So, but no, in terms of the league finishing early, I think we can't have any complaints. We weren't in the running. I think Brora were worthy winners in a sense, but ultimately I think if we'd been up challenging closer, I think we might have had something to say if they'd called it early.
And it's interesting because obviously you say Brora were pretty much the runaway leaders, but they were meant to have a playoff with Celtic Hearts for the position to try and go into League 2, and obviously that's been cancelled. What effect do you think that has on the pyramid system as a whole? Because obviously it's an unforeseen circumstance, but the teams have really worked hard to get to that position. Do you think it would have been probably possible a bit further down the line to maybe get them games played?
I think, yeah, because ultimately the pyramid, they brought it in, the pyramid system, they brought it in place for a reason. You set out at the start of the year, we were no different to Brora. Our aim is to obviously gain promotion and sort of follow in the footsteps of Cove Rangers, who have done excellent. So you start the season and the aim is to win and to get rewarded for winning. And I think both Brora and Celtic have, I think the Lowland League was obviously a bit tighter than it was up here. Mm-hmm. But you could argue worthy winners, both clubs. So they deserve to be rewarded. And I think it's a wee bit harsh on them. Probably very harsh. And they'll obviously be disappointed whether it has an effect on them for next season. Who knows? But if we were in their position, I'd feel genuinely hard done by.
Yeah, no, definitely, and it's understandable, because as you say, you set out at the start of the season to try and win the league, to try and get this opportunity for promotion, and then something like this comes along, and as I said, as much as it's unforeseen, you still hope that there'd be a chance for some sort of reward coming at the end of it. But there's something you touched on there as well about sort of Cove Rangers, and they seem to have done really well. They're into League One now, and there seems to be some investment coming into the league for teams like Cove and things like that. Are you seeing more and more money coming into the likes of the Highland League and the Lowland League?
I think, I don't know too much in terms of the Lowland League. I've kind of got a small history in the Highland League from when I was a kid and such like, so I've known it a bit better. But there's certainly, it's not millions in such like. There's some well-run clubs with some good investment, and certainly I know there is a few clubs kind of. I think maybe prior to Cove going up, we're a bit sceptical of it all and whether it was, financially viable, whether they could compete. But I've said for a number of times, and I know Scottish Cup ties can be one-off games, but generally the top 4 or 5 in the Highland League tend to do well in the Scottish Cup. They can compete with League One and League Two clubs, certainly. So I don't see why over a season, they could certainly do that as well. So I think Cove have gone and improved that, and it's given sort of clubs that, we can go and do the same. So there is more of a hunger now, seeing what Cove have done. We were no different. We were, the previous 3-4 years, we've kind of finished second and third in the league, and our aim was to obviously, we were challenging Cove, and our aim was to go up and try and compete at that level, and we haven't changed that, but they've, shown that it can be done, and I think, I don't know, I think there's a few clubs will be scared of the investment. You're starting to hear the Lowland League clubs are starting to invest a bit more, and because of the pyramid system, I think, chairmen and managers are seeing the progression rather than, you can win your league, but that's the ceiling. So because there's the progression there, I think there's a bit more excitement. Players are maybe, you could argue, maybe gets a little bit more money, playing part-time alongside a job than you maybe are getting sort of lower-end championship. So it's decisions for players to make, and, if you can join a club and you see them going on the up, then it's an experience in itself.
And how has this sort of pandemic shaped how you're planning for next season? Has there been a change to your budget, or are you already starting to get the guys renewed for next season and looking to strengthen?
We a bit of both. We'd, even before this all happened, we were talking about trimming the squad anyway. We were quite heavy in a sense, and it's difficult to keep everyone happy. It's it's a happy medium. You want a strong squad, and because you need to cater for injuries and such like. But at the same time, when you've got a squad of quality players, you can't keep them all happy. So that's hard in itself. But we were talking about sort of maybe letting 1 or 2 go, and then we've got a couple of young boys coming through that we feel deserve sort of a little bit of a chance, and trying to integrate them into the squad. And so we looked at that anyway. But obviously with this all happening, things have maybe gone a bit tighter than we had planned. So we've probably didn't renew the contract of 5 players, but we managed to get a good core signed up. And you obviously want to leave yourself a wee bit of leeway in case a player becomes available that you feel can enhance the squad. So we've kind of done that. We'll see what happens. I think looking at League One, League Two, even your sort of players, reserve players from SPL clubs are being released, and sort of looking at that, if they can add a bit of quality to the squad, we'll certainly look to do so.
And it's interesting you touch on that, because if we look at last season, Fort William, who had traditionally been a bit of the whipping boys in the Highland League, they managed to secure this partnership with Inverness Cali, and they got quite a few loan players off them last season, and it worked for them. They got their first win in about 3 seasons, if I'm correct. What was the feeling amongst the rest of the guys in the league when you seen that partnership coming together?
It's a strange one, because ultimately, as a club yourself, you do what's best for yourself, and I think they looked at it and think, how can finances are tough up there, certainly. It's hard to attract players because it's a location. So they obviously looked at something, at how they can make it improve, and in the way they went about it, some would say it was wrong, taking so many players from one club, but they did what they had to do. And certainly, in previous seasons, we I think we beat them 14-1 one game and 10 another, and they had that off a number of teams. So yeah, they were still down the lower end of the league, but it was certainly a lot tougher game than it had been. And then you look at these young players; it's a good experience for them. I think I can only touch on my own experience as a young player at Celtic, and I probably, in hindsight, waited too long before I went out on loan. And so I think for these young boys, it's good to get the experience. And yeah, some people might turn their nose up at the level of football, but ultimately you're playing against men, and then that can, regardless of what level, that certainly toughens you up.
And we'll touch on your Celtic career very shortly. There's just something that came into the news this week, and I'm not sure if you've seen it yourself. Darvel, who have now joined the West of Scotland new football league that's part of the football pyramid, are signing guys from Championship teams and League 1 and League 2 teams. So there is obviously that sort of money coming through there. Do you think that'll eventually filter through and the teams like yourselves and Brora will become more attractive for players that are leaving the likes of Championship and League 1 and 2 teams?
I think so. I also think it depends on your age. I think the sort of more experienced players might look at, you're over 30, you might think, you're slightly coming to the end of your career. You're having to start looking at the next stage of your life, getting a job and that, your next career in a sense. But if you can sideline that along with football, you can make a decent living. And, I know it's a terrible one to say, it's not about money, but ultimately if you can earn more money doing, your job along with part-time football, then is it more appealing than playing sort of maybe high League 1 or Championship? I don't know. That's the individual itself. But I think maybe a younger player is still trying to chase, maybe doesn't have the family commitments and having to provide. And there's so much to come into it. But again, that comes down to the individual. And I think everyone's situation is different. I was in a similar position when I was 31, 32. You're starting to think about the next stage of your life, but you're also wanting to continue playing, and it's trying to balance that and decide what's the best route to go down.
So probably two questions just before we move on to your Celtic career and your career through Ross County and Motherwell. The first one, I'll get an answer from you now, and the next one I'll leave you to ponder for the rest of the podcast. So the first one is, from the players that you've played with throughout your career, if you could sign one of them to help you push Formartine up towards getting the Highland title, who would you pick and why?
Oh, that's so hard. It's very hard, and the reason I say that is because I played with a lot of good players, and it's looking at I played maybe the odd game with a top class player, or I played seasons with very good players, and it's trying to decide that. I think I'll probably say I'm happy with our goalie and such, like he's good, so I couldn't say our goalkeeper. But no, I'm happy with my squad. I think, my time at Ross County, that's because I was there for so long. That's probably the squads that I look at when people ask me about players I played with and stuff. Because let's be honest, you could go through every Celtic player I played with, and they would be one. But I didn't obviously have a significant time with them. But then probably Stuart Kettlewell would be up there, just for his attitude, determination. We had a good partnership in the middle of the park. But I probably wouldn't get away without saying my pal Michael Gardine. He would bring everything to the club, I think. He brings the change room side of things, the banter, the patter, everything that goes with it, but also the dedication he has, his work ethic, and obviously his quality on the park, I think would be a huge asset. So
if Midgie's listening, then there's a contract offer sitting on the table for next season.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, second question before we move on, and I'll leave you to ponder this one throughout the podcast. Your highlight of last season, so season 19-20, whether that be with Formartine, with any of the clubs that you've played for, your highlight for the season. So I'll leave you to think about that one.
Okay, no worries.
All right, so as we've said before, obviously you came through the Celtic Youth Academy. I actually when I was talking to Paul Dykes, who is the kind of owner of this podcast, he was showing me some of the old Celtic Views and some of the old match programmes, which had you at under 14 tournaments back in 1999. But how did you join Celtic? How did that come about?
Well, George Adams was the head of youth development at Celtic, but he was based up in Aberdeen. So whether that worked in my favour or not, I don't know. But I was obviously just like most boys. I know things are slightly different now with the academy set up and players are going into clubs at 8, 9 year old. But I was just playing with my local boys club. From the age of 8, 9, I'd been training with Aberdeen, but no team. They didn't have a team as such. You would just go along and get coaching on a Tuesday night, and I'd done that for years. And then George had came to a few of my boys club games and spoke to my dad and done the usual. I got invited down, Easter break, summer break. You would go down for a week's training with all the other boys my age and sort of year above and such like. And instead, Aberdeen actually offered to set an S form to me, which I accepted. So it was the Easter holidays, and I'd gone into Pittodrie for a week's training. At the end of the week, they offered me the S form, which I was, agreed to sign. And they'd asked me if, they knew I'd been training with Celtic and asked my situation with them. And I said, well, I was due to go down to Celtic the following week. And I said, I'll probably still will go. I don't know why I was so brave at that young age, but I said, I just accepted to sign, but I said I was still going to go down for my week's training with Celtic, and they were fine with that at that time. So I went down, and I think on the Tuesday, the Wednesday, my dad got a phone call to say that Aberdeen were withdrawing their offer, and so obviously I get relayed the story later on, but my mum and dad were worried, should they tell me there and then, or would they wait till I came home? And I think on the Wednesday or the Thursday night, they got a phone call from George saying Celtic wanted to offer me an S form. So that kind of blew it out the water, and it didn't matter. So I signed the schoolboy form at 14, but I was still based in Aberdeen. So we trained with George and a few other lads. We would train on a Tuesday and a Wednesday night up here, and then on a Friday, we'd get the afternoon off school to jump on the train and go down. And I'd train with my team on a Friday night. Celtic were at home, you'd go and ball boy for the first team on a Saturday, and then you'd play in the development league as it was back then on a Sunday. It's
certainly an interesting story about coming all the way down. What was the point when you decided you had to move down to Glasgow for good?
Well, so I had the S form for 2 years, and then the club again, George approached and said the club would offer me a 3-year contract. So that it's a no-brainer. I think my mum will still say I took my eye off the ball at school and such like the last few months, because I knew that's what I was going to do. But for me, it was a no-brainer. And I think at 16, moving to Glasgow, I was just excited. You're going down, you're ready to do a job that you love, and for the biggest club in the country. And I didn't think about it. It's not when I think back now. I think I was 16. I left home. All right, it's only 2.5 hours, 3 hours away, but it was still a big move, and I can see why my mum was a bit upset at the time. But ultimately, you're chasing the dream. So I think it was just an excitement and adventure, and the club couldn't have been better to me at that time.
Yeah, and these are the days where the youth were still training at Barrafield. This is before Lennoxtown. But there was actually quite a good core of young Scottish and Irish players coming through. I mean, in your team you had David Marshall, guys like Aidan McGeady and John Kennedy were coming through, Ross Wallace. What was that like, being with guys like that and then seeing them progressing into the first team? Did that give you encouragement that you would be able to make it through as well?
I think it was... When I first went down, I think I was a little bit naive at the time, because at the end of the previous season, it was when Kenny Dalglish had just taken over for the remaining part of the season, and I think the last game of the season against Dundee United, they'd played sort of 11 so-called youngsters in a sense, and I just assumed that, oh well, I'll go down here, play in the youth team for a season, and towards the end of the season, depending on how the league goes, I'll get a run out in the first team. And I'm a bit naive to think that, because that's just not how it works at all. And you go down, it's not, until you go down and you share a dressing room with these boys and you're training with them, that, the standard is very high. I just used to look at my position. Obviously, boys in front of me at the time was probably Mark Fotheringham, Liam Miller, Colin Healy, guys like that, and you're just going, well, I need to really raise my standards if I'm going to get anywhere near it. And that's when it's a bit of a wake-up call. But going back to the sort of dressing room side of it, it's people say it's the best days of your life, and it probably is, because it's so carefree. You're going in, you're doing your jobs that you don't always like, cleaning the showers and doing the boots and such like. But that's all part of it. And I hear stories that sort of times have kind of gone. The boot cleaning and washing the kit and things like that. But it's all part of a good upbringing. I think everyone from sort of my age group and generation will say the same. It was a great grounding.
Do you think that's still got a place in football? If you were the manager of, say, Celtic at the moment, would you still want to install an EFO like that through the team, where the guys that are coming through the youth are sort of earning their way up towards the first team by doing things like cleaning the boots and that?
I want to say yeah, I really do, but I also understand that the game has slightly changed and the way they do things. Like I say, the whole academy process, I've kind of been slightly out the loop with that for a couple of years now, so I'm not fully up to how it all kind of works, but I generally do think there is a place for it. I mean, it probably, you could speak to people who were maybe 5 to 10 years older than me. They probably had it even worse than we did, and they would say, oh, you guys had it easy. So we're now looking back and saying the boys today have it easy from what we did. But I think there's certain things could still be done. I mean, I think there was nothing better than getting a pat on the back from a first team player to say, "Oh, you've cleaned my boots well," or something. That just it's incredible. Guys like Henrik Larsson or Petrov or Paul Lambert, or whatever. My boots have been cleaned well, and it just gives you a little lift, and it makes you take pride in your job, and little things like that were certainly. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working at games, laying out the kit, and because you were in amongst the first team dressing room at 16, 17, and all right, you're not in the squad, but you're still there and gaining that experience.
I remember reading a story not too long ago about another former Celt, Olivier Capel, and how he left a £60,000 car to the guy that cleaned his boots for a whole season, I think when he was at Birmingham. I take it wasn't quite like that for yourself when you were coming through.
No, certainly not. The guy, I think we'd done it slightly different. A lot of clubs, I think you would be assigned certain players, but at Celtic we had, you would be, if you were based at Celtic Park, it would be like in 3-4 week cycles, so you'd be doing the kit and cleaning all the boots. There'd be a group of 4 or 5 years doing that. But I think at other clubs you were, assigned 2 or 3 players' boots and you looked after them, and then you would get rewarded at Christmas time and such like. So we didn't quite get that. But like I say, for me, it was just the reward of getting a pat on the back, because I think the aim, as a young kid, when you go there, you want the first team players to know who you are in a sense, and obviously for being on the parks. But if you get them to notice you in any which way, I think it's a good thing.
So obviously coming through the youth development, you joined at quite a young age, and you made it through all the teams, getting into Scotland age groups as well. Looking at the coaching side of things, who had the most influence on your career as you were coming through Celtic? Obviously Tommy Burns was one of the main coaches in the youth development system. Did he have much of an influence on you? Was he someone you could reach out to, or was there other coaches that you look back on and think they were the ones that really guided me through?
There's probably... I probably have a good thing to say about them all the coaches I worked with at that time. Tommy was probably latterly when I was there, but I think in the beginning, Chris McCart and William McStay were superb. I think just what I needed at that age and at that time. Willie on the training ground was exceptional in terms of teaching you the game. I think every player will say everyone hates doing sort of shape and just walking through things and stuff, but it needs to be done. And I think, Willie was excellent at that, kind of teaching us the game. And I think I take that for granted at times when I look at some players and just expect them to know these things when they maybe haven't had the coaching at that sort of level. Chris McCart was my under-16s manager, and I think he brought the side of the game, the winning mentality type thing, and, which everyone will tell you at Celtic, you have to win regardless. And it's all, yes, you want to play nice football and good football, but ultimately you have to win matches. And I think the two of them were great at that time. And then moving into the reserves, you had Kenny McDowall, who I thought was superb. Again, just fitted the role perfect for the boys of that age group. And in terms of making you grow up, being a man, again, the winning mentality that has to be drummed into you. Yes, it's reserve football, but, Kenny didn't hide the fact that, you had to win every single game. And then at that point, Tommy started to get more involved with myself. I think just the way it worked, I kind of missed Tommy's coaching because he was when I was probably 16, 17, 18, he was dealing more with the sort of a lot of the younger boys, the sort of 14, 15-year-olds, and it wasn't until he came back into Gordon Strachan's coaching team that had most dealings with him, and like everyone else, you literally can't say a bad word about the man, and he was just an absolute gem, genuine, loved the club, loved everyone, and I think if you worked hard, he just he took to you, and he just had such a passion for the game that it was just so infectious.
The stories you hear about Tommy Burns, I could do a podcast alone on it. The man is sadly missed at Celtic, and I've always thought that Lennoxtown should maybe be renamed after Tommy Burns, and I think that would be a fitting tribute to the man. But moving on, obviously you mentioned there Gordon Strachan, and it was really Strachan that gave you your first appearance away to Dunfermline in August 2005. You'd been on the bench a couple of times before that, but what was that feeling like when you came on and made your debut?
I think a bit of relief, because like you said, I'd been in the squad and been on the bench a number of times, so you're thinking, what is it ever going to happen? And I think the week leading up to that game, we had a few injuries, and a couple of people had kind of said, this might be your opportunity to get a run out and such like, and I didn't think anything of it. And then as the kind of week progressed, I kind of felt, well, you know what, maybe I do have a chance, when you start seeing who was at training and who was on the treatment table, and you kind of think, oh, well, maybe, I was trying to work out a team in my head, and you kind of go through all the permutations. Oh, well, he might play him here and he might play him here and such like. But I think he ended up going with Adam Virgo actually ahead of me in midfield, which was, yes, exactly. That's not a story I like to tell. But no, and I think for me, I was a wee bit gutted because, regardless of what people may think of Adam as a player, he generally was a centre half or a striker, but he got played holding midfielder that game. So that was disappointing. But I think after about an hour, I got the shout. We were up 3-0. So I don't think it was a huge gamble for the manager to put me on. And it was, I can sit there and go, I should have been playing, but ultimately the manager has to do a job, and he's maybe thinking, like, go back to Celtic have to win. They can't afford a draw away to Dunfermline. They can't afford that. So I think he got to the point where the pressure was off. We're 3-0 up. But I can put him on now and get him a little run out. And
you seemed to stay around the squad that season. You made the bench quite a number of times. Did it ever look at any point as if you thought, if I just get in here, then I can put my name on a spot, or was it always just a case of just looking and seeing who's ahead of you at that point?
A bit of both, because you obviously have to have that belief in yourself, but at the same time I'm looking at it going, well, the captain is playing in my position, and how do you dislodge Neil Lennon at that time, and it's still in Petrov as well, and so I was also realistic, and I was just hoping to stay about the squad, get a few appearances here and there, and give the manager something to think about maybe for the following season. I think that was my aim at the time, and I managed a few further appearances, but ultimately, it wasn't to be the case in terms of getting starts. I got one start in a couple of sub appearances, which is obviously disappointing, and you want more. But like I say, there was some top players ahead of me.
Yeah, and was that part of your decision the following season then to start looking at maybe going out on loan? Because you had two sort of loan spells that year, one at St Johnstone and one at St Mirren. Was that part of your feeling? Was that you just don't know if you're going to get that chance ahead of some of the players that they brought in? Because it was actually one of the positions that Gordon Strachan looked to strengthen, signing guys like Paul Hartley, Barry Robson to kind of come in alongside Neil Lennon at that time. So was that part of your theory behind looking to go out on loan, just to get that experience of first team football?
Without that, I mean, I obviously touched on it earlier that, I probably should have done it before then. I should have probably gone out on loan at sort of 18, 19, just to get that first team experience, and that might have helped. But, hindsight's a great thing. But I think ultimately, being realistic, I wasn't going to kid myself on that if the manager's going out and signing, like you say, a few players for that position, then you kind of feel that you're not going to be given any further opportunity in a sense. So it was keen to then sort of look at myself and say, right, how do I kickstart my career? And the opportunity to go to St Johnstone came up, and they were at that time they were in the old first division as such, and looking to gain promotion. So I thought it would have been a good opportunity to get games and play in a winning side and fighting for a title.
Yeah, and obviously Ian came back to Celtic, and unfortunately you were released in the following summer. Having taken a look at the sort of time you were in around the squad, do you think that was the right thing for you at the time to give a fresh start, or do you think there was still something you could have maybe had a chance at Celtic?
No, I think I still had a year on my contract to go actually, and I sat down with the manager at pre-season, and he kind of said there would be little to no opportunities due to players he's signing, players he's looking to sign, and for me, I need to go out and get my career up and running, and I accepted that. It's not easy to hear, but ultimately he's right. I was I think 21, approaching 22, so it was something that I needed to do and go out and play. And I got that bug probably more at St Johnstone than I did St Mirren, but just playing on a Saturday, ultimately that's what a footballer wants to do, play on a Saturday afternoon and rather than sit on the bench or whatever. So he was right. So we kind of came to an agreement to terminate my contract, and then it was up to me to go and find a club.
So you end up signing for Ross County. How did that move come about? That's so obviously you've jumped down from what was the Premier League at the time to Division 2 with Ross County. Did you feel that was the right move for you, or was there teams sort of within Division 1 that were looking at you, or bottom half of the Premiership?
At the time, no. George Adams was the director of football at Ross County at the time, and just by chance I'd bumped into him in Glasgow City Centre maybe a couple of weeks prior to that, and he was kind of asking me what was happening, what was going on, and I kind of, at that point I was like, I'm not going to be, I'm getting the feeling from the manager, I'm not in the plans, and it's probably time for me to move on. And he said, well, keep me in the loop and let me know. So I never spoke to him again, and then when I signed my release papers on the Friday, I think George had phoned me and just that invited me up to Ross County to watch a game on the Saturday. They were playing Airdrie, and invited me up to the game just to kind of have a look at the place, get a feel, see what I think. So I went up there, and like I said, didn't have many clubs banging the door down, so I was more than happy to sign. And if I'm being honest, at that time I was looking to sign a year's contract to get a season under my belt and look to kind of use it as a stepping stone at that time. But I wasn't to know that the club would progress as well as they did, and I had 6 great years up there.
Yeah, and I think part of the success at Ross County comes from the backing that they received from the chairman and Roy McGregor. Did you feel as if that was part of the movement from Ross County, because there was always this drive to get them towards the Premier League or the Premiership as it's known now? Did you really feel part of that as they kind of progressed through the leagues, that this is the end goal? And I mean, eventually they ended up top 6 one season. So did you really feel from the word go that that was part of the plans?
I think initially, because they'd just been relegated to Division 2, so initially the sole aim was to get back at the first opportunity, because there was discussions that halfway through the season, if we hadn't got promoted, then the club would be going part-time. So I think things like that is a driving force, and you potentially have people losing their jobs and such like. So that gives you the drive to achieve what we achieved that first season and gain promotion back to the first division. And then I think, like most teams, you gain promotion, you want to consolidate the following season, and then it's right, where can we go from here? And probably the Scottish Cup run of 2010, which probably put the club on the map. That's probably what kick-started the belief to say, do you know what, we can go on again and achieve what, the end goal, obviously, to be in the Premier League.
And before we look at the Scottish Cup run of 2010, because there's a famous game in the semi-final against Celtic to discuss. When I was looking up some of your history, the first season that Lawson scored a, in brackets, stunning strike as his first goal for the club again for Ross County. What was so stunning about this strike that it's so highlighted?
I think I can make it sound a lot better than it was. No, it was a left foot half volley from about 22 yards, and it was probably, I think it was like the 85th minute or something, to win a game 3-2. So I think it made it better than it maybe actually was. But people have said throughout my career, it was a joke up in Ross County, I didn't do tap-ins, but I was like, I wasn't high enough up the park to score a tap-in, so I was always shooting from distance. So you keep doing that now and again, one will go in. So luckily enough that, again, the buzz of all that's why you play football. Scoring a goal late in a game to win, and yeah, it's only 3 points, but what a buzz it is. And I didn't score many in my career, so things like that still stick out in my mind.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because the next thing it says here is, after the match, Lawson said he hadn't experienced scoring enough to know how to celebrate. So
yeah, right. Although it's funny, I think I scored in my first or second game for St Johnstone, so they maybe thought they were getting a goal scoring midfielder, but then it kind of died after that.
So you touched on it there, the sort of Scottish Cup run of 2010, and you played Celtic in the semi-final, winning 2-0. What was that experience like, going back to play against some of your old teammates and going back to playing against Celtic? Because at the time, Ross County really weren't favoured for that tie at all. It was expected that Celtic would just turn up and win the game, but you came away with a 2-0 victory and made it into the final. What was that experience like for yourself?
It was a wee bit mixed for myself. I'd got a bad hamstring injury in the quarter-final replay against Hibs. So obviously, when it was Celtic in the semi-final, and it would have been my first sort of game against them since I'd left. So for me, it was a massive thing to try and get fit for that game, and done everything possibly we could to try and get me fit. And fortunately enough, I was managed to train sort of 3-4 days before the match. But at the time, I was not happy with the manager, and because I didn't start the game. Mm-hmm. But looking back now, I wasn't fit enough, because as it turned out, the following Tuesday at training, I pulled my hamstring again. So I definitely wasn't fit enough to play, but I felt at the time I was. And so I wasn't, my frame of mind was probably what it shouldn't have been going into the game, not playing. But the boys on the day were outstanding. I think Lenny had come in. I don't think it was his first game in charge, but I think he'd just taken over from Tony Mowbray, I think.
Yeah.
And there was obviously talk that the club weren't in great shape, but ultimately it was Celtic against Ross County of the First Division. But I think on the day we fully deserved it. The boys were outstanding, and the manager put me on, I think, for the last 5 minutes, mm-hmm. and just it was quite surreal. You're passing the ball about, and the Ross County fans are all laying and stuff, and you're just thinking this isn't right, playing against Celtic and that's happening. But like I say, on the day, I think we fully deserved it, and the boys were outstanding, and we certainly enjoyed the aftermatch celebrations.
And that was actually a very good Ross County side at that time. You came on for Midgie, so if he's ever thinking he still owes you a favour, that contract offer's on the table. Guys like Andy Barrowman, Richard Britton, it was a really strong side for Ross County, and that's most of the core of that side then made it into the Premiership alongside yourself. Did you think that result against Celtic was the catalyst for getting in there and making it up to the top league?
I'd probably go back to the Hibs game, solely because, again, probably nobody gave us a hope, because we're First Division, you're playing against Hibs away Easter Road, and I think we went down there and played them off the park. And I've said to somebody recently, I think my abiding memory of that is we actually got applauded off the park by the Hibs fans. Now, at that point, you think, well, we must have done something right. But I think we came off the park thinking we should have won the game. We played really well. We were comfortable in that environment. So I think that gave us the sort of the boost. And then we obviously win the replay. But then the Celtic game, you've just turned over the top club in the country. So that gives you that boost. And like you say, the core of the team, we were together for sort of 4 or 5 years, progressed together. You could argue there's certain players maybe felt at a point to prove against certain teams. Look at myself, Midge, Michael McGovern was in the cup final team. You're looking at 3 ex-Celtic players thinking, I want to be playing Premier League football. And with other boys in the squad like Richard Britton, who played with Livingston previously, Stephen Craig, Premier League experience, boys that were keen to get back there and show that we belonged at that level. Yeah,
definitely. And then if we touch on the cup final itself, you started on the bench to come off. Did you ever feel as if there was a chance for you in that game? It was pretty dominant from Dundee United for most of it, but you were really holding in there for the first hour of the game before the breakthrough came through.
Yeah, I think the first half was a bit of a non-event, I think, from what I can remember. Again, disappointed not to be playing, but the manager went with the same 11 that started the semi-final, which in hindsight, again, can you really argue?
Mm.
There's probably arguments for both, but the boys did so well, they probably deserved their day to walk the team out in the final. So, but no, I think we were sort of without creating anything. And probably, I can't really remember Dunya having great opportunities themselves until the breakthrough. It's probably still sticks with Mick. He came out and had a poor clearance, and David Goodwillie obviously lobbed it over him, and that kind of deflated us, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a hot day. I can't remember playing in a game as hot as that, and even me coming on, I didn't feel I had the energy, and I think we were just zapped, and I don't think really we created anything to warrant getting ourselves one back into the game or even winning the game. So a lot of people say now, the semi-final was your cup final, really, because you shouldn't have been there. But I think all the boys in the team and the manager and we'll all, were very disappointed with how we performed on the day.
And looking at it again, an attendance of nearly 50,000 for a game between Dundee United and Ross County is incredible. And I think that basically the whole of Dingwall and all the surrounding area travelled down to Glasgow that day.
Yeah.
So you definitely had the backing for it. And unfortunately, it just wasn't to be on the day. But it's something that a lot of the fans and that will always remember the day out at Hampden. And I'm sure it's the same for yourself, getting to come on in a national cup final. It must be a memory that you treasure.
I think, yeah, definitely. I think, well, when we got there, I think a lot of people didn't think, you talk about ticket sales, no way could Ross County, sell their allocation, but we did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. You see the stadium full, and that's what you want to see all the time. And it was special. Again, it's not till you probably now or the last couple of years you look back and think, wow, it was an achievement in itself getting there. Yes, obviously the disappointment of not winning, but for our club at that time, budgets and such like, it was an achievement. We did probably overachieve, and the club have gone on and progressed since then. Mm-hmm. But that was sort of the beginning, and it was proud to be a part of that. And also, like you say, you've played in a National Cup final, so it's certainly losers' medal's not great. I can't even tell you where it is. I don't even know where it is. But I've played in a Scottish Cup final, which is something that can is always with me.
And I'd say that certainly your time with Ross County has to be considered a massive success. Winning the second division, the first division, the Challenge Cup, making the final of a Scottish Cup final, and top six when you eventually made it back up into the Premier League. So if you look back on your Ross County experience, is it something that you're pretty proud of?
Definitely. Like I say, I went there thinking I was going to be up there a year. And 6 years later, we'd gone from the second division to the top six, and we'd done it the right way. I think there wasn't money thrown at it. The manager assembled a squad that he believed in and gave boys a chance to go and show what they can do. And we had a great bunch of boys, friends that I'll have for the rest of my life, and we had some great times, great experiences. But what we achieved was certainly up there. Like I said, the club maybe have gone on, with winning the League Cup and such like, but we still achieved the highest ever finish in the Premier League, and something to be proud of.
So when you left Ross County, you signed for Motherwell, and that was at the end of your contract with Ross County. Was there an offer on the table to renew your deal up there, or you just knew that was the time for you to move on?
There was an offer on the table. Earlier in that season, I was out the team. Probably from I played the first 2 league games and then found myself out the team. I got injured and then just never got my way back in. I was training with the youth team. I was kind of bombed out, and it was a strange situation. There wasn't a fallout as such with the manager. He just discarded me at that time, and that was a hard one to take. But then it was Boxing Day actually at Easter Road, just due to injuries and illness. I got in the squad and got in the team, and we ended up going on a 12-game unbeaten run. And I stayed in the team from Boxing Day right to the end of the season. And so if you'd asked me in the sort of November, December time, I would have said I'm definitely leaving. Mm-hmm. My heart was set on leaving. But then you get back in the team, you enjoy it. Let's say we finished 5th, and I was keen on staying. There was an offer on the table. Motherwell showed their interest, but there was, personal life. I was maybe looking to get back down the road, just due to my partner at the time she was living in Edinburgh, and we'd kind of decided that if we could get a club back down sort of Central Belt, we would take it. And in hindsight, things didn't work out at Motherwell, so but that's an easy thing to say. I just, at the time, everything fitted in perfectly, and it just suited my situation. I spoke to Stuart McCall, and everyone was, I was really excited. You got the chance of European football, so I could have turned that down as well. But like I say, in hindsight, should I have maybe stayed at Ross County? Yes. Would I have picked up the injuries that I did at Motherwell? Who knows? And it's always one thing I'll look back on. But like I say, you can only go with your circumstances at the time, and they fitted in perfectly going to Motherwell. And it's a club I'll speak highly of. I probably didn't do myself justice, and you probably speak to any Motherwell fan, and they probably won't even know who I am. Probably didn't play as much as I had hoped. Didn't get a chance to show them what I can do, and I think it was a tough time for me personally as well. That was, I think people just see you on a park on a Saturday, but there's a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes, and a 2-year contract, being injured for 18 months isn't easy. And I just wish I could have played more and shown the fans why the manager brought me to the club. Yeah,
and one of the first points you touched on there was the chance of European football, and it was in the Europa League against Kuban Krasnodar. What was that experience like, going away to a place like that to try and play your football? Was it quite intimidating?
No, I really enjoyed it. I think, European football, it's what everyone wants to play. You want to play in the Champions League, obviously. I was on the bench for one of the games, Artmedia, Bratislava at home.
Yeah, we'll not talk about that.
It was the home game, so we won. But
I still blame Craig Beattie for not scoring that fifth goal.
I know. So being on the bench for that, it gives you that little taster. Then you go away from the club and don't think it's ever a possibility again. And then it obviously arises with Motherwell, and I think great chance. And I didn't enjoy the home game. We lost 2-0, but the away game was a great experience. You're flying over on a chartered flight. You got fans on the flight as well, and just the place in general. And they were a very good side. And it's just a totally different style of football and how the game's played. But again, it's a great experience.
I can imagine for a team like Motherwell to get the chance of the Europa League, and eventually, due to circumstances later on in the seasons, they had the chance at Champions League as well. So for a team like Motherwell, it's one of the teams I really respect across the league, because they seem to be a really well-run team. I think Alan Burrows is doing a great job there, and they always seem to be a difficult opposition anytime Celtic come up against them. So it's great to see a side like that. Moving on, you said yourself, injured for 18 months. It was a bit of a struggle through the rest of your contract, and you were obviously then released at the end of that. What was it like then? Because there's a sort of a period of a month before you then move on to Formartine. Did you consider staying within the Football League, or was there just the case of wanting to get back closer to home?
It was a difficult one because I hadn't played a lot of football. Out of contract, I was still injured. I'd maybe played one reserve game, I think, towards the end of that season. And a couple of offers to go on trial, the following pre-season. But to be honest, my confidence was shot. I wasn't sure if my injury would hold up. I'd came back to Aberdeen for the summer, and an opportunity of a job came up. I'd spoke to the company, but then I was still speaking to my agent. We were still in talks, what to do. And then I was thinking to myself, if I turn this job down and maybe go on trial somewhere and I break down and I'm injured, I'm left with nothing, And it was a difficult decision. But I decided to go, I need to start thinking about the next 30 years of my life and start to make another career for myself. And so I accepted the job. And then it was a case of, right, what do we do football-wise? Because you obviously have the love for the game. I want to keep playing. But again, like I said, I'd been injured for a long time. I wasn't sure if my body could hold up. But I was still only 31, 32 at the time. So I still felt I could offer somebody something. And a couple of Highland League clubs made offers to me. They'd got wind that I was maybe moved back to the area and was thinking to continue playing. So I spoke to a couple of clubs and Formartine as well, and I decided to accept their offer.
Did you feel there was much of a jump moving from the Scottish Premiership to the Highland League? Did you think, I've played Premiership football, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be one of the best players in the league? Or is there actually an underappreciation for the quality that's in that league already?
A little bit of both. There is an underappreciation, don't get me wrong. There's some very good players, whether they're at that level for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it 100 million times. Players with ability, maybe their attitude's not quite right. Bit of bad luck, some injuries, whatever. A lot of the boys are at that level for certain reasons, and so there is some good players in our squad at the time. With boys who'd maybe been at Celtic when they were younger, Aberdeen when they were younger, and boys who'd played. Myself, Gary Wood had played at Inverness, Ross County. You had Craig McKeown, who was ex-Dundee, Clyde. He actually played in the Clyde game against Celtic. We won't say, we won't talk about that as well. But there's Stuart Anderson. Again, he played down south, a young lad at Southampton, and played at Blackpool, and come up here and played with Peter Henson. So we had good players in our squad, and I do think there is a slight underappreciation, but at the same time, I had belief in my own ability that I thought I could go and stamp my authority in games. But then on the flip side of that, you've got opposition who are out to try and stop you, and I'd never been man-marked in my life, and I got that on a couple of occasions, which I found quite hard because I didn't think I don't class myself as a flair player or whatever, but a couple of teams tried to man-mark me in that, and I guess that's a compliment to an extent, but ultimately it got my love for the game back, and I really enjoyed my first season there, that's for sure.
So then you moved into a coaching role in 2017. Did you feel as if you were ready for that? Had you been taking your badges at the time, or was it just an opportunity that arose?
Opportunity that arose. Genuinely hadn't thought about it. I still felt I had a few years left playing. The manager at the time resigned, and a few people had kept saying, you should go and apply for the job. And I was like, no, because I don't want to. I want to keep playing. Like I said, enjoyed my time. I think the part-time side of things maybe helped my body. Only training twice a week, and I was playing again, loving it, got my love for the game back. But the chairman approached me, and I'm not saying basically said I'm taking the job or else, but he got me to his office and locked the door and said, you're not leaving until you accept the job. But I think obviously it's tongue in cheek, but then when I actually sat down and thought about it, I thought, you know what, it is an opportunity, because you are a long time retired, so why not keep my involvement in the game and get involved in the coaching side.
Did you ever have that sort of idea that maybe you could be a player coach, a player manager, maybe bring yourself on, or were you kind of scared of what the boys would think if you decided you're playing yourself every week?
I think, well, I still try, and technically I'm down as player manager, but I've probably played a handful of games in the last 2 seasons. But right at the beginning, I think, well, one of the main reasons I accepted the job was I spoke to the chairman and said, well, in terms of backroom team, because I was caught on the hop, I had never thought about it. I hadn't thought about, your staff or whatever that you have to bring along. And basically Russell was my number one candidate. And I spoke to him, and I basically put the ball in his court, because if he said he wasn't interested, it wasn't for him, then I probably would have turned the job down. But he said, yeah, let's go for it. We've got nothing to lose. Let's go and see what we can do, and let's try and enjoy it. And so because he was on board, then that gave me the encouragement to accept the job. And then I thought, if I've got him on the sidelines, I can keep playing. That was the sort of initial idea. As it transpired, I haven't probably played as much as I maybe should have. We've had disagreements a lot. A lot of times I might leave myself out the team, and Russell maybe disagrees. Kind of said, if somebody else had been in charge, you'd be playing, so why aren't you playing yourself? But I guess it's easy to leave myself out than somebody else. Then I've also had a couple of games where I'm thinking about everyone else rather than just playing the game. You're trying to manage as well as play on the park, and that's difficult. So technically I'm down as player manager, but no, my games are few and far between. I've probably played more under-20s games, which I enjoy as well, because you've got the young players and you're trying to bring them on. So I've actually enjoyed playing in those games than the first team games.
So what's your goals for the season coming ahead? Do we know when the Highland League's going to start back?
We don't. We've got nothing confirmed, but I think they're hopeful we can get going in October time. All going well, but no, nothing confirmed as yet, which we're all itching at the bit to get back, but obviously we have to adhere to government guidelines.
Yeah, so what's the aspirations then when you do get back? Are you aiming to try and push towards a title again this season? Do you think you could put a squad together that could challenge for the title?
Yeah, that's the aim. It's been the aim up in this area. It's no secret that's the chairman, when he got involved with the club, that is his aim to win the title, and we've came close on a few occasions. So it's it's no secret that's what we're aiming to do, and the season coming is no different. I think we've got a good squad. We've been inconsistent at times. We do seem to do really well in the cup competitions, and then our league form can dip, and so it's about getting the consistency in the league, and that's certainly our aim. Like I said at the start, teams now wanting to follow what Cove Rangers have done, and we're no different.
And obviously with the new signing that we've just announced, breaking news on this podcast, that Michael Gardine will be signing, then I'm sure that he's going to drive you towards the title.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, I'm on to him every other day saying, I think it's about time you chucked it. But he's like Benjamin Button. I think he just gets younger as he gets older in a sense, and he's still, he's a huge player for Ross County at the moment, so I can't see him dropping down anytime soon. But he does assure me when the time comes, if I'm still in a job, he'll come and turn out for us.
Well, let's hope that's not too far in the distance for.
Yeah.
So it's been a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed listening to everything that's happened throughout your career, and the spell at Ross County obviously being the highlight of your career. But the time through Celtic and at Motherwell as well was also very interesting. If you had to pick one moment going through your whole career as a sort of highlight, what would you choose?
There has been a lot playing alongside some top players. You have your moments off the park, celebrations, but I think probably winning the first division with Ross County and getting them up to the Premier League was phenomenal. I think the way we did it, the season we had, just that season in general, the squad, the group of lads that we had was unbelievable, and I think just that period was so special. But I think ultimately achieving promotion was great.
I think Ross County is obviously what a lot of people will remember you for, but obviously, as you said, coming through at Celtic and your spell at Motherwell. Paul, thank you very much for joining us today.
No problem.
We did say to you earlier on, we wanted you to look at the highlight of season 1920. So, as a football fan, as the manager of Formartine, what was your highlight of season 1920?
So difficult. I've not had a chance to think. I've been talking so much. I don't know. It really is difficult. I think, like I said, in terms of Formartine, I can't say we had much highlights last season. We probably underachieved. We got to a cup final, one of the local cup finals. We lost that, so it was disappointing. But looking at my former clubs, it's hard to say. I would really struggle. You put me on the spot in a sense. I can't really think. And probably because the season was cut short, there's nothing, successes of clubs weren't really showing. I mean, you're looking at obviously Celtic getting your 9 in a row is obviously special, and it gives them the platform to go next season and try and beat the 9 and get the 10, which everyone's hoping to do. And so obviously that. But because of the way it was done, you don't celebrate it as much as what people probably would have, and it's disappointing. I mean, it's just similar looking down south with Liverpool. It's not the same when it's done off the park, but ultimately, I'm sure the Celtic players aren't complaining. They've got their 9 in a row, so they're probably not complaining. But obviously, the celebrations will have been a bit more muted. So no. It's a difficult one. I can't answer that.
So what we'll do is we'll reconvene in a year's time.
Right, that's fine.
When Formartine have won the Highland League, Celtic have won 10 in a row.
Yeah.
Ross County are top 6, and Motherwell are doing okay as well.
Perfect. That'll be ideal.
Paul, thank you very much for joining us today, and best of luck for the new season. Hopefully, we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks very much. Absolute pleasure.